This is F.D. Recovery, where we interview addicts and alcoholics.
Our aim is that through this podcast, we might help you on your journey of recovery.
Thank you for listening.
Hello, this is Frank with F.D. Recovery, and you are listening to the Weekly Intention. Hello, guys. Another week started, right? It's July 27th and Monday, and we're doing the Weekly Intention. So we're going to recap on last week, which was being present and how it worked in our recovery, and we'll start on a new intention, which is a question, is am I happy? All right, happiness. Am I happy? And I think that's important to ask yourself, right? It helps you evaluate where you are, right? But before we dive into that, let's talk a little bit about how being present worked in our life. Funny, we talked about present. I got some presents yesterday because it was my birthday, and I got to be present for that, right? And I wasn't loaded. It's my 7th birthday in a row, not loaded, which is awesome for me. And in 2 months, no fronts, of course, I'll have 8 years. So as long as I keep doing what I'm doing, one foot in front of the other, I will achieve that. But there is no fronts and there's no promises in recovery. So, but it's more than likely I will get there. I don't want to get a big head or anything. So, being present, that's the name of the game. We talk, we get into recovery, at least I know I did, and talk a bunch of fancy shit and start learning all this new lingo, and got a head full of static, but a mouth full of all the right shit, right? And playing the card, talking out the neck, and really I'm just swirling in my own thoughts and in my own behaviors, and I'm kind of off the rails, especially in early recovery. And I know that it's a similar song and dance that we all experience, right? And cracking the code of coming out of all the bullshittery we're used to and really getting into the present moment and learning how to, embrace, everything that's going on, right? Before it was just like, I'll elaborate on the, swirling in my own head. It's like, I was always so worried about what people thought and think. And don't get me wrong, I still am. It's always going to be, that's why we have these tools to get us out of there. The battle's a lot less now, and I'm so fortunate for that. But, to say we're out of the woods is, is not a thing, right? So we always got to stay diligent. We always got to keep our eye on the ball, right? And so wrapping that into the whole present moment and just understanding where I came from and those swirling thoughts and how they used to be so overwhelming and how I used to just seek attention, through different means, whether women are just, saying the right shit, making it sound cool, waiting for my share to come around, and, I'm going to just captivate whoever I can. It was all fakeetry, right? It's all fake bullshit. And not all of it, I will say that not all of it was complete bullshit, but a good part of it, right? I was saying things that were regurgitated and, that sounded smooth, and try to make my own and put my own twist on it. And I was, this time around I did a lot of work, but you get hit with life events and you realize you have to do more work, right? The more work more will be revealed and more will be required, right? And that's the whole concept of this is getting past all that shit and getting back into the present moment is such a key thing for this whole spiritual development. I don't want to get all fancy and shit, right? And that's what I try to do in early recovery. I just try to keep it simple now and understand that I'm going to get it wrong. People around me are going to make mistakes. We're all going to not be our 100% all the time. And it's just important to show up how we are. And that's the big part about the present moment is, where are you? Where are you at? If you're only at 60%, then God damn it, step into that 60% and just, be where you are. Pay homage to that moment. and be connected. Talk to who you need to talk to help you out of that yuck, if that's where you're at, right? Showing up to your authentic self, even in the pain, is such an important part to this process. It's so important. Most of my life has been trying to deny what was going on with me, or fake it what was going on to me, and put the big smile on my face, when all I was really thinking about was like how to kill myself. Like literally, like how to commit suicide, and not reaching out at the most crucial moments. And instead of committing suicide, I tried the drug route every time, and it was a slow suicide. And I got to points in my addiction where I have attempted suicide, and I failed, of course, thankfully. But and when I look back at it, it was all a cry for help, and I didn't really know how to reach out. I didn't know who, what, when, where, all that crap. It was just a bundle of chaos. And when we talk about present moment, we talk about the healing aspects of that. It's hard to show up in the present moment if you're blocked by so many things. And um, although I just said show up how you are, it's very important. But you also have to see where you are and show up where you are. You can't do one without the other, almost. And showing up exactly how you are, and taking a good look within yourself, and doing the steps right, and doing it with another person to help you sift through that. Because sometimes what you see you might not like, and it might just drive you crazy, enough to put you back into the bottle or a needle, right? So we make sure we do all this with support. You're not gonna, man, if you're in recovery and you're hearing me right now, and you think you're gonna do it alone, good fucking luck. It ain't gonna work. I hate to say that shit, and I know a lot of people, the interwebs are mixed with opinions, man, but I don't care what anyone says. It's like recovery and just life is all about connection, dude. You try to do anything alone, good luck. You end up having, even on the automated services, you end up having to reach out to customer service every now and then, right? Take the self checkout list. Rarely the self checkout line. Rarely do you get through it without having to call someone over. And when you do, it's like an epic. Oh yeah, I did it. But then you still have to either show your receipt at the end, or you feel obligated to show it. So there's still some human connection there. And I just try to get through the day without corresponding with humans. It's a very hard thing. I mean, it's easy when you're locked away smoking dope and doing all that crazy shit, but eventually that comes to an end. It always does. And we got to get reacclimated into the world, right? And being present is a huge tool, especially in early recovery, to get you reconnected back to your emotions, your thoughts, your body, going, "Ow, man, what did I do? Where do I start?" It's start right where you are, right? These are those questions you're going to be asking yourself, right? And the present moment will tell you everything you need to know. The people around you will show you exactly who you are, right? Because we're a big reflection. We're the greatest reflection of the closest five people, right? Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And it's very important that the people we surround ourselves with, they're worth a shit, right? That's the reality. And if they aren't, that means more than likely you aren't either, right? So you're probably that poison for each other, that toxic for each other, right? So where do we start, right? Where do we start for being present? Well, it starts with work, right? Doing the fucking work, guys. If you're struggling out there, just know that I'm rooting for you. You got to do the work, though. You got to do the work. Got to put in the blood, sweat, and tears for all this shit, guys. You got to work through the past, therapy, steps, get a sponsor. Man, it's so crucial that we take this recovery thing serious, because it's a game changer once you do. Once you get really connected into this and you start getting a good rhythm, you start figuring out what recovery is all about, you start learning the lingo, and even better yet, you learn the lingo and it starts working in your life and you start understanding the lingo through like understanding like, whoa, that's what that means, right? And you just get to this better place where you're just like, okay, this is starting to click. And your life just before you know it, your life changes, right? You change, uh, your attitude changes, and then attitude from other people change towards you, and you're just like, whoa, this is a unique experience. Don't get me wrong, not all problems just go away. That's not how it goes, right? You pray for patience, and here comes that asshole. God sends you an asshole, right? So we got to stay diligent with all this spiritual shit, man. Forgive my language. So let's move on from being present. So if you worked that this last week, even hell, just keep working it. Just because it's not the topic for the week, we still practice it, right? So practice these principles in all our affairs. So still practice patience. And the question is, happiness, right? Let's see. Let's just put in happiness. Happiness in recovery. Let's see what it says. All right. Meaning. There we go. Sorry, stand by. Happiness. Recovery meaning. Perfect. All right, let's see what it all has to say. So, happiness in recovery means finding peace, contentment, and a deeper sense of purpose after overcoming substance use or addiction. It is not about feeling cheerful all the time, but rather learning how to live a meaningful, joyful, and sober life. All right, understanding happiness in recovery. Rewiring the brain. We talked about that. Rewiring the brain, the neurotransmitters and neuroplasticity, right? Healing takes time because drugs and alcohol change brain chemistry. Every day, things take time to feel good again, right? So we have to rewire that. Accepting all feelings. Recovery means allowing yourself to feel sad, angry, confused without turning your back on or without turning back to old habits. Building new habits, right? This is important, guys. Simple practices like mindfulness, exercise, and gratitude help bring joy, natural joy, back into your daily life. Connection and purpose. True happiness comes from healthy relationships, honest self-care, and living true to your personal views, right? And what does that mean? Personal views. I remember my personal views were all in the muck, right? But getting into recovery, you start learning different values, right? You start learning spiritual principles. You start living more of a structured life inside spirituality, and you start going, wow, man, things like honesty, open-mindedness, integrity, love, truth, all these things that are kind of foreign to us that we're not just talking about, especially in our daily lives as addicts, right? But you got to ask yourself, am I truly happy? Right? And that's an important question, because what is it when we talk about fulfillment and contentment, right? And finding that joy and peace, like, what does that mean? And for everybody, that's going to be different. For what it means for me is exactly, when I sit back and I look at my recovery and I go, oh my God, right? I'm in such a better place than I ever have been. And today I can really say I'm truly happy. I got an awesome wife, and it's not about all the stuff, this is about the connections. I got my awesome wife. I have my awesome little girl. I'm reconnected with my oldest daughter, and and I have really quality relationships today. I still have my struggles, right? life would hardly be life without them. But I think the compare and contrast is very important. The yin and yang of it all, right? Is accepting life on life's terms is the most important part to finding true happiness. Is embracing and being accepting of your reality around you and what your downfalls are, right? And what your setbacks can be, whatever it is, whatever you're dealing with, right? Well, you got to look at those things really. You got to, going back to that being present, you got to really kind of take a moment and kind of evaluate the present moment and say, hey, this is where I'm at. And true happiness for me is just being connected with the people that I love, and I'm not always 100%. I still struggle, right? I'm still getting used to this sober life, working all the time, coming back home, and people actually wanting me around. That's new for me, right? I was always used to nobody fucking wanting me around, and I was just a big burden. That's what my life felt like growing up. It seems like my parents didn't even want me around, from the abuse. And then when I got older, where they stopped hitting me because there's a good chance I could whoop their ass. And I don't mean to be a dick, but that's just the reality. You kind of outgrow some of the punishments because, I was becoming a young man. And that being said, it's like most of my life I was never really wanted, right? And I know it's a very personal thing, and that's just where I was at, right? They kind of didn't want me around. It kind of just felt like they were waiting until I was 18, and they even tried to ship me off a little bit early to my mom's house because I grew up with my dad. And that being said, it's like I've always just felt like a void, like nobody ever really wanted me. And in turn, I just kind of adopted that towards my self-image, and it was nobody's fault. It's just what was going on, and whether anybody intended it to. No, I don't think that. But working through some of these things and working through those resentments and understanding that everybody is just a human and doing the best they can and finding forgiveness in that. But you also still have to pay homage to it. And you say, okay, well, this is where I'm at. Like, this is my struggles I had to overcome. And once you start overcoming those things, start coming to the truths of the matter. It doesn't change the truth. You don't like somebody does shitty things to you and all of a sudden, well, you forgive them and it's done. No, you still know what happened. And working past that is not about just forgiving and forgetting. It's about understanding and getting to a place within yourself that you can truly accept it and move on from it, right? And I just share some of that stuff is because it pertains to this whole happiness thing. For a long time, I just kind of grew up thinking I didn't belong anywhere, and I was hated, and then I would jump from dope house to dope house. No one really wanted around me unless it was transactional, right? And so everything just kind of turned into this transaction, dope moves, all this, kind of morphed into something a little bit more perverted. Before it was just like rough childhood. Nobody gave a shit, or they just want me gone, never bouncing around, going with my uncle. Nobody even really wanted me around. I was just kind of a problem, right? So I just kind of embodied that for a long time. And I was a problem. I was a troubled kid. I, stole, did drugs, beat up people, always got in fights, drugs, the whole nine, right? And getting kicked out of schools, never going to school, in trouble all the time, suspended all the time. So, it was really just kind of it was just kind of the way it was working out. And getting down to this whole getting home and people actually wanting me here now and building that life, that's still new for me, right? So I can still find myself being distant. Distant and all that. And just still trying to get back to that self-worth piece where I'm like, I'm worthy of all this and I need to start trying to embrace it a little bit better. So we're gonna have battles, guys. We're gonna have battles. We're gonna have opportunities to grow, and opportunities to challenge ourselves to get to that next level. Right? We talk about, am I truly happy? That's up for you to decide. You choose happiness every single day. It's not all about high fives, blowjobs, and butterflies. It's the reality is you got to choose to be happy. You got to choose your perspective in the morning. You got to choose. You got to be intentional about the way you rise. Are you going to do the snooze? You're going to do that whole piss poor, woes me bullshit all day? Are you going to take charge? You're going to taking charge is doing your meditations, doing your workouts, sticking to your routines, sticking to the things that keep you good, the grateful list, the prayers, the meditation, the higher power, the spiritual principles, practicing in all of our affairs, the step work, right? Are we going to do all these things to help really morph into the person that we know we are capable of being, right? Because I think the biggest thing is for me is never living up to my full potential, and I know how I know that I really robbed myself for so many years, and today I'm not willing to do that, so I stick to my routines, right? I'm not perfect at it. Nobody is. Progress, not perfection, guys, please. And the reason I repeat that is because it was a big struggle of mine for so long. It's just getting to a place where, right, I just thought since I screwed up for so long that I had to be perfect and just overdo it. And, I'm getting to a good balancing point in my recovery. And, it's just getting to that place where you're like, when I ask myself, and when you ask yourself this too, maybe write some things down, am I truly happy? And see what your answers are. Maybe write about it, right? And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a little happiness essay, and maybe I won't read it on here. Maybe I'll just paraphrase it and just kind of break down what my thoughts were. But maybe I'll do that. I'll write about it this week and talk about happiness and work on happiness and just indulge in it, right? Indulge in what brings me joy and kind of my perspective on happiness, and we'll see how it goes in our recovery, right? So this is Frank with F.D. Recovery, and this week we're working on happiness, right? And ask yourself, am I truly happy? And if you're not happy, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it, right? I challenge you. What the hell are you going to do about it? If you're going to sit there and say, I'm unhappy, meh, 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 okay, cool. I get it, right? Because I've been there too. But what are you going to do about it? What changes are you going to do? What choices are you going to do to help change your scenario? Because I promise you, it's all up to you. Whether you're happy in this life or not, it's totally contingent off of the way your brain fucking works, right? If you're going to see life as woe's me and some bullshit and everybody's doing this to me, then you need to challenge that perspective. I urge you to challenge that perspective and see what you can find behind that. Write about it, guys. All right, that's all I got for this week. I love you guys. FD Recovery, we out. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to FD Recovery. A reminder, be kind to yourself on this journey of recovery. Also, call your sponsor, get connected to local support groups, and for one day at a time, stay clean and sober.